I am Sally Curcio, and I am the interim gallery director at Hamden Gallery. And Hamden Gallery is a program of the Fine Arts Center at the University of Massachusetts, Amherst. We exhibit and support local and international artists working in all disciplines that address a range of subjects and are at all different stages in their careers. We are known for being a launching pad for emerging artists. We are also known for exhibiting well-established artists. The Hamden Gallery offers free programs to the student body and the public. Our programming has included many exhibitions, receptions, UMass student thesis exhibitions, a student outreach program, artist talks, workshops, poetry events, artist calls, and we've also offered critique and mentoring sessions. So I just want to tell you a bit about Hamden. And here's Alicia Renadette. So I just want to welcome everybody and thank you for being here. And Alicia Renadette is a multidisciplinary artist whose work covers a range of approaches from sculpture installation to costume construction performance and mixed media drawings. Her work has been exhibited nationally with shows at the Sculpture Center, New York, Southern Exposure, San Francisco, Brattleboro Museum and Art Center, Vermont, and at the Governor's Island Art Fair, New York City. She has been a recipient of grants from Assets for Artists with Mass MoCA, Vermont Studio Center, and the local cultural councils of Holyoke and Lowell, Mass. She holds an MFA in sculpture from the San Francisco Art Institute and a BFA in experimental studio sculpture from Harvard Art School. She currently spends her time between Providence, Rhode Island, and Holyoke, Massachusetts. So welcome, Alicia.
Hi, thank you, Sally. So today, let me see, I'm still figuring out Zoom a little bit. I have prepared a sort of a loose narrative slideshow to share with you where things are just kind of weaving around my process, sort of trying to give an idea of where things start and how maybe things don't really end, they just kind of evolve. So let me get that on the screen and I'll get to it. Okay, I'm starting here with a piece from probably about, I don't know, 12, 15 years ago. And this piece is called Always a Bridesmaid. Sometimes it's called Once Worn. I tend to change the names of my pieces at whim or as it feels appropriate. But this was a discarded mattress spring, a box spring. And it was in a pile on the curb with a bunch of formal wear. And it just kind of struck me, the relationship between those two objects, how this idea of the prom dress or the bridesmaid's dress being something that's worn once, and also how the idea of the prom is a very like sexually charged time in someone's life, or the lore and jokes around bridesmaids being undesirable or loose, so to speak. So so that's shown inside of the springs. There are some little medicine cups that have maraschino cherries and little strings of pearls on them. It's shown on this broken mirror. I'll go to the next one if I can. Oh, goodness.
You have a small selection that's the blue with the marquee running around it, which I think is keeping you from going forward.
Oh my goodness, how do I get rid of it?
Try escape.
Thank you. I have now escaped and I'm on to the next one. Thank you so much. So this is a piece that's a few years later. This is called Restraint. And it's made with several different things from inside of a domestic setting. So it has, once again, furniture springs and overstuffed pillows and like a plastic urn and a lazy Susan and a laundry basket. And I've sort of made this overflowing, embellished shape that's sort of reminiscent of maybe like a delicious ice cream sundae, but it's all held it together with this with electrical wire, and it's bound, and it sort of has this like this feeling of not being able to kind of contain or control what's needing to seep out. And at the very tip top of this, here's a detail. You can see here that I have this little adorable kitty cat that's asleep amongst all of this ripped and shredded items from within the home. There's Christmas lights, there's these barbecue forks that are all kind of stabbing at it. Next up, the next piece after this that I'm showing you is a piece that I call Bambi's Mom Had It Coming. And it is made with a lot of the same materials that you saw from the last piece. In fact, some of them are materials that were taken from that. I tend to cannibalize my own work and evolve it into the next thought. So you'll see that some of the red felt and ribbons that were in that previous piece have moved on to their new life, and unfortunately their new life isn't that happy of a one. This one sort of, I think of it as having a color palette that's similar to like a very fairy tale, like a Snow White. And then also one of my thoughts around it, or one of the reasons I named it what I did, is that Bambi's mom, the killing of Bambi's mom in the middle of the movie is perhaps like one of the most traumatic things that a young child saw of my age in a movie. And it can have a real scarring effect because, it's a mom is a mom, whether it's a deer or not. So I'm talking about things that are, again, complicated scenarios that may happen within the home, domestic violence, also women being seen as doe-eyed prey. So moving on from this piece, well, and maybe I should tell you the materials as well. So it is this deer pelt, and it is surrounded and snared by these, again, kind of fairy tale like sinister vines that are made out of wire fabric. And it's all suspended probably about 5 or 6 feet from this chain of oversized pearls, as if it's been, ensnared well out in the wild. And also you can see there's all this gauzy tea-stained curtain shears and things of that nature. And this is a detail from the very underside of it, because when you are approaching this object, you get to view it from all different aspects because it is suspended. It tends to have a little movement and sway. You can kind of get up underneath it and see that these are the entrails, so to speak, and they're made with these recognizable yellow dishwashing gloves. All of these, again, plastic pearls, which I had made a piece before with these pearls. They didn't come like this. For some reason, I thought it was a good idea to spend hours and hours making them into this network, and then had really no idea what to do with it and abandoned it. So now it's been incorporated into this piece as these entrails. And this is another piece that is also just sort of this like tangled and confused, restrained mess, basically. Because this is kind of my ode to how confusing and frustrating it can be for someone who doesn't maybe come from the most idyllic family to have to go home to the holidays, and maybe the psychological response that I have towards commercials, towards just this idea of isn't it great that we all get to go home for the holidays? Because a lot of us have very complicated relationships with that. So this piece is called Homesick for a Holiday Hangover. And it's sort of exploring that rift between private and public life. And it's made with this white vinyl Christmas tree that I found on the side of the road. It's completely wrapped with that greenish stretch wrap that you can get at Home Depot or UPS or wherever, where every pallet is wrapped in it now. Every tree has a piece of it, hanging off of at least a couple of its limbs. So it's sort of smothering it, restraining it, also exposing the commerciality of this capitalist holiday, and it's also becoming this other sort of organism. This piece is about I think it's about 4 feet tall and 5 or 6 feet long, and it also has these spores, these growths that are made with upholstery fabric and an old Afghan and blankets and sweaters and all of these things that are like, bringing you these like warm, fuzzy comfort feelings. But it's becoming its own thing, kind of evolving, and hard to say whether it's what kind of creature it is. So moving on to the next guy. Oh, and I should mention here again are those red felt guys that just keep moving from piece to piece. I think I had a lot of them. I didn't borrow them from the last piece, but from a piece that was a couple pieces before that. This is a more recent piece. It's maybe 2 or 3 years old, and this is called Coming of Age. And in this one, I'm using this whitewashed and decapitated hobby horse, and it's growing these kind of spires out of them that maybe they're they kind of have a sinister, charred sort of look to them, and it's galloping through this cloud of folded paint sample swatch cards. I used to love being in like a hardware store if I had to go on an errand with my parents, and always seeing all the beautiful colors that were available on these cards. And it's sort of a ode to this time of growing up, this time of not necessarily being disillusioned, but kind of our fantasies sort of change from this realm of the fabulistic white horse that maybe symbolizes some kind of purity or fertility or adventure, into this world of like fantasizing about what color you're going to paint the kitchen. It's like a very different stage in your life that you're at. So this is a wall piece. It's about, I want to say it's about 3 feet tall here. It has some other mixed media that's again taken from former pieces and made into this new sort of little landscape, I'd like to say. This piece is another kind of ode to this like fabulistic world, this kind of look at childhood innocence versus adulthood. And this one is called My Spirit Animal is a Mutant Fawn. And again, with this piece, it sort of has this very like clumsiness to it, which again, I'm like referencing like those Disney movies where the animals, the little baby animals like stand for the first time. And it's so endearing, but you're so afraid for them too. It's made, so its legs, its original base is made with actually really like an ugly office chair that I've hacked at. And that's not important, but maybe of interest. And I've used this this Easter bunny costume that I again found in the garbage. And I know I'm not alone in this, but I've always found the Easter bunny to be really like disturbing. It's just something about the mall Easter bunny. It's just, it's terrifying rather than fun for me. So I've used this kind of childhood terror of the Easter bunny. Also, I'm like thinking about like a science fair volcano as being this other like just hearkening back to youth and various troubled symbolism that's confusing, that's perhaps violent, that's I don't know. In my experience, I have a lot of memories that are really layered and confused. And I think sometimes that shows up in my process, in my work. They're not necessarily meant to be these like linear narratives, as I think you're probably getting a sense of. So this piece also has a second view. That's a little bit of a surprise. So underneath here, it's crouching atop this mirror, which is outlined with this. Oops, it's not there. The slide's not there. But anyway, it's on top of this mirror, and there's a latch hook rug under it. In the show that's up online, there's a second view that I didn't include in the slideshow. But under here, you can see visibly that there is another creature that it is birthing. So you can see that in the mirror. There's a head that's crowning. So the next slide, forgive me, some of these things are out of order. I changed things last minute. This is a detail of the piece that was before that, the piece with the horse that was coming of age. So this is a detail of all the materials I was trying to explain were present. Hopefully the rest will be in order. Wish me luck. There's that view that I was describing. So there's this this head. It's one of those just plain styrofoam heads, but I've adorned it with a new texture. So this is also a more recent piece. This piece is called Regenerate. And it's again using some older work. Specifically, this pile here are these worms that I had made out of all the like the bras that had worn out. It's always disappointing when you have to get rid of them, but it was also sort of like about like aging and facing your own mortality, and how to evolve as a woman when you're maybe not as like fertily viable. How to deal with your evolving sexuality, or perceived sexiness, maybe is more what I mean. So this piece started with a tangle of these sweaters, also incorporated all these plastics, all these, like, again, things from the comfort of home, making this sort of confused and layered and just muddled pile. But in itself, it has a lot of beauty, and we see that there are, like, things that are able to grow out of all of this confusion and seeming chaos. So that's built on a couple, like a 5 or 6 planter stands that are stacked together, and that holds it up. So all in all, I think this is around my height, which is 5'2", for anyone who would like to buy me an outfit for Christmas. These are the worms, and you can see some of the bra straps are visible. There's also some old stockings in there. This is another view of this tangled mass of really joyous trash. This is a piece that is more recent, but again incorporates a lot of older work, and I've incorporated some images. We're going on, like I said, we're going on a little bit of a journey here. So here is the head to the horse from the other piece. And here it has diamonds in its eyes, and it's spitting out, it's kind of drooling pearls. And this piece is called From Venus. It's kind of this ode to this idea of women as another species that we can't possibly understand. I had also done a lot of work with thinking about domestic goddesses and thinking about women's work and how it's displayed. This particular woman has this, like, kind of Medusa-like quality to her. She's got a whole headdress made out of sponges and a whole mask that's made out of sponges and cut up like disposable wiping cloths. And then underneath you can see that her seed pod is lined with these yellow dishwashing gloves, again, which I had made literally hundreds of them for a former piece. And they're all lined with this royal red velvet. And there's another view of her headdress. So this is the piece that came before that, but also came after other parts of it. It gets very confusing trying to figure out what happened. This is a piece called Don't Go Chasing Waterfalls, which is a song from the 90s. This was installed at about the level of my pelvis. I was thinking of these offerings, but also this like extension of self. And it's also got another one of these like portal kind of views where it's above a mirror. And so there's new ways to look at it, new surprises. It has all these deflated ribbons, and these are all these little hearts that I had cut out of plastic inflatable pool floats, and they're strung on these curling ribbons. And here is a little ceramic swan tchotchke attached to this. That's another view of her. And so this is another older piece. Here we go again with some of these. I was thinking this is a piece that was called Procession. And I was thinking about offerings, also thinking about like our culture and what we bow to, what we worship, who our our consumer gods may be. So this is all these appliance packaging, like large screen TVs and computers and things that are stacked and made into this sort of parade float. All the surfaces are treated with like a liquid foundation, like a women's cosmetics product. Maybe it's not just for women, but so it gives it this kind of skin feel, but also this kind of sandstone, old temple sort of feel. It also, to me, like these like little fluffy facial tissue flowers and this texture together. I'm not sure why, but it feels like extra, like kind of perverse to me, kind of dirty in a way. So that's a little bit of an older piece too, and we'll see where that's going next. So this is a second kind of iteration of it. You can see a lot of reuse of materials here again. This is that what becomes the headdress, the horse together with these flowers. This is a previous altar that I had made, and this piece was called Come Clean or Don't Come at All. And that's got a couple different meanings, one of them being a little menacing, a little threatening. I'm moving on from that. And here we see part of this is this obsession that I've had with these little plastic cocktail swords, and just it's like death by 1,000 cuts sort of thing. I just am so enamored with them. I always want to take them home when I go out to eat. I always want to swashbuckle G.I. Joe or something. They're just such strange objects. And then in mass, they sort of have this almost like a porcupine feeling, but the fact that we have like this weapon that we've just sort of normalized as a vehicle for an olive is or a cherry, or a sandwich, it's a little strange. So here I have them stabbing into this, I think it was a medical cooler, or I don't know what these held. I love the way these negative spaces look in these styrofoam containers. I just really like how they can become this like mysterious architecture. Like, is this like some kind of royal bath or an aqueduct, or what's happening? Speaking of architecture, so we're moving on to a piece that this eventually evolved into. And this is a piece that I did at Governor's Island called Ruining Wonder. And I was thinking of ruins, but also thinking of our consumer culture being culpable of taking away some of our imagination, and certainly destroying so much of our landscape. So I was making this this sort of like future archaeological ruin, which is this temple. And again, it's using the cosmetics to create this new, almost like skin on here. And it's covered with, well, it's covered with Easter grass. It also has a lot of plastic artificial flowers that I've taken apart and incorporated with the cocktail swords and with toothpicks, things like that. And they're stabbed into the surface. It's just decaying and also like coming back to life. It's also sort of looks a bit like a really delicious cake, but also like a less delicious cake because it's kind of moldy. And it's here in this underground bunker, actually on Governor's Island. There's a place called Fort J, and this was in their powder magazine room. So that's where that's located. And here's a detail of that. You can see it's got all these kind of sweet elements to it. All of these like holiday decorations and beads and cupcake holders and etc. All of this trellis is made of those like plastic 6-pack holders that I've reshaped. I've cut them into these kind of curly, swirly things and gave them all sorts of fringe. So next, this is along the theme of these altars that I'm making. So this is a more recent piece. This is a piece that I made actually last year, and I'm still working on a bit this year. And this piece is called "If I Had a Flower for Every Time I Thought of You, I Could Walk Through My Garden Forever," which is a quote that I've seen enough on gravestones that I kind of wondered about it. And it's attributed to Lord Tennyson's poetry, and yet a lot of like the scholars around his poetry disclaim this quote and say it's not something that he would have written. So either way, that's beside the point. But so these are flowers that plastic flowers that I found in this graveyard that's near my house. I live very close to a park, and off of the park is a graveyard that is not well maintained, and it's actually a kind of a magical and depressing place to go at once. And it's magical because people go there and they adorn these graves like they're just overflowing with these bouquets and candles and mylar balloons, and really built up, kind of similar to some of the shrines that I've modeled my work around. And depressing because if these aren't recently built, then they're not maintained. And so the way that this is a privately owned cemetery, the way it's being maintained is by volunteers or by people who are assigned community service, and they go and gather the things, put them all in like the contractor's bags and just throw them under the tree, or they're like in a leaf pile. So the whole place is like this like Disneyland, but then it's got some like trenches that are dug and covered with plywood, and there are gravestones that are knocked over. There's a lot of drug use that happens in the cemetery. That's not, that unusual, but there's lots of trees with lots of piles of lots of refuse. And that is where I tend to get these flowers. I don't take flowers from people's graves. Like I couldn't do that. So this is also like just an interesting, like, why do we put fake flowers on people's graves? Is it like an attempt to like deny, the inevitability? Is it like is it hopeful? Is it wanting to keep these flowers alive because wanting to do service to the memory by leaving something that will last longer? But anyhow, I've gathered these back from the from the leaf piles, and I've sewn taken the flowers apart. I've sewn the petals together and sort of making this this weeping, seeping hanging garden that's also has a shape that's sort of angelic and also sort of maybe tree-like, something that is again like regenerating, reprocessing, becoming something new and different. So this is a detail. These are also, these hands are actually a night light, and I'm still working on this piece a little bit. I've recently taken the entire thing apart and I'm reconstructing it. And I would like to incorporate these hands and use them as a very subtle lit up element. So this is a detail shot. So this is a more recent project. This is a very small section of a much larger installation, which was just impossible to install and get shots of before putting this show online. Or I've installed it a few times, and it's just one of those pieces that's so hard to photograph. It's nerve-wracking. So this is a piece that I started making before COVID-19. And I was calling this piece just simply Germs. And now I'm not calling it that. This is again made of the styrofoam and the disassembled plastic flowers. And its new name is Hurtling. I like the ambiguity of the scale of this. Just to give you an idea, this little room that it's taken in is 8 feet wide. So these things range between, being 6 to 8 inches to being 24 inches. And they're mounted, some of them are on posts that come off of the wall, and some of them are mounted right onto the wall. And there are these new kind of ecosystems kind of tumbling around like asteroids, or perhaps they're things that are floating through the air, some kind of contaminants. Really a work in progress. But as it is a work in progress, I'll show you in a minute where this is potentially going, and I'm happy about it. So this is a detail of one of those conglomerate asteroid type deals. So this is this may seem like it's out like kind of coming at you from nowhere. This is an example of a drawing that I would do. I think of this as being kind of like a conglomerate. So in talking about how it can be frustrating to get a good shot of a mixed media sculpture or an installation, I tend to get a lot of shots I can't use, but I really like. And they're often details of things. Or sometimes even if I have someone else take photos for me, they give me shots that I can't use, but they're beautiful, but they don't, translate with the pieces. So I like to use images of my 3-dimensional work in creating new 2-dimensional work. So here we can see the first piece that I showed you, the Always a Bridesmaid's piece, is here. And the second piece that I showed you, a bit of it is here. And these are some of the cherries that wound up in the piece with the horse. And there's other, this is some of the toothpicks and Easter grass from the temple. And so I've made this like conglomerate form. And I show you this mostly just to say I have this practice of reinterpreting 3-dimensional work as 2-dimensional work. And in the next slide, what's going on with those pieces that I showed you before. The conglomerates, the hurtling pieces, the germs, the asteroids, is that I'm now working with my good friend Maggie Nowinski, who is teaching a drawing class at UMass this semester. And we're doing some long distance collaboration. So we're combining some of her drawings with some of my some of those smaller elements in that installation, and really is kind of like playing with layering our language. She really likes to investigate these biomorphic forms, this idea of like this internal external. Is it plant, animal, mineral, etc.? So just wanted to show you like a couple of these new collaborations, and to just show you where things are going during COVID, and also just yeah, how they started off as being these ideas of these unseeable particles that we didn't know if they were foe or friend. We now know they're foe. So here's another piece. This is Maggie doing this like ink wash and responding to some of the 3D forms within her drawing, and then layering some of my photographs that I've drawn on and cut out on top of that. So it's like a real marriage of the two. And again, these are all like in process shots happening right about now. So I'm raring up to be done here. Okay, that's the final slide. So I'm gonna come back to you now. Hello. Hi, Christine. I'm all set.
Excellent. I was just typing a question in, but since I'm on local, I'd love to know your drawings that you did. Are they, do you assemble them electronically through the photographs, or are you printing and cutting them and assembling them collage-like?
The second. So yeah, I don't do any of it digitally. So it's all just printed out, and sometimes I really like it when the printer like messes up too. So then I get some like extra fun, unexpected things in there. But yeah, they're all hand cut.
And then if I can draw your attention to the chat, there's a question in the chat as well.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. The pieces that I borrow the materials from, they just live on in photographs. They're just, it's, well, or I borrow the other part of the materials for something else, and maybe they go on to live their own life. It can be a really melancholy day when I find myself heading out to the garbage with some work that I spent hundreds of hours on. But you know, usually that's after it's been 3 or 4 different pieces. So it may be time to let it go. Thanks for the question.